stuff. I'm keenly aware of that. I'll tell you a funny story. We have the most emailed list of stories in the New York Times, and columnists, because of their nature, they tend to, go toward the top, because it's usually, look what Maureen Dowd said, look what Frank Rich said, because they're opinions, so they have sometimes more energy. And I used to, God, this was about 10 years ago now. I was working Sundays. My column was appearing Sundays. And I often, before I'd go to bed, sometimes late Saturday night, I would check, the column, just read it before, as it was going to appear the next morning. And I had written a column. This was in one of my anti-French moods, saying that India should replace France on the Security Council. I'm a famous Indiophile. And I was going to bed, I was reading the paper online. I see this column is already the number 5 most emailed column on the New York Times website. It's only been out for 2 hours. And then I realized, of course, it's morning in India. They're all reading it over there, saying, look at this, and emailing it all over. So you get funny reactions like that. But I just think of my audiences as being out there. But when I was in Beirut, just imagine, the paper, the New York Times, wouldn't come for 6 weeks. The physical New York Times. You could write whatever you wanted. By the time somebody here in the PLO came and said, did you see what, it was now. The story I always love to tell about this was, I was here, this is where I really got the first inkling of it. I was here as the New York Times correspondent. In 1985, there was an election. And the results were late at night, and they announced the cabinet list. And it was so late, I was at home, and I had to dictate the cabinet list. So I'm going down the list, Prime Minister, Shimon Peres or Shamir. We got to Minister of Religious Affairs. And I said, Minister of Religious Affairs, National Religious Party Leader, Yosef Burg. And for some reason, the person on the other end heard Bedouin Religious Party Leader, Yosef Burg. And the newspaper came out at 11 p.m. There was the cabinet list. Bedouin National Religious Party Leader, Yosef Burg. And it took, at 11:05, someone called the New York Times and said it's not Bedouin, and it was corrected at 11:06. So you are really aware that you're being read by a lot of people, and you better get it right.
Okay, let's talk about business. That we're here to talk about how Israel can do the leap and become one of the most developed and rich countries in the world. As you know, we are not growing that fast enough. In the last 10 years, I think that GDP per capita in Israel grew at about 60% of what it grew in the OECD countries, and less
60% of the OECD
60%,
average.
yes, 40% less. And some people in Israel, to make it clear, I'm not one of them, but many people in Israel, maybe in this audience, believe that the path to that leap go through peace in the Middle East, or at least to a clear peace process. What is your take on it?
Well, I'm going to back into that, and not avoid it, but I want to back into it, because one of the things I talk about in the book is, because I get that question in every country. Okay, the world is flat. What do we have to do? And the answer actually is very simple. You got to get 3 things right, basically. The first is infrastructure. Okay, if you can't connect to the flat world platform, I'm talking about bandwidth, telecom, ports, airports. If you can't connect to the flat world platform, you're going to have enormous liability. So the first is roads, airports, classic infrastructure. The second is education. You have to have people with the right education, because it's all about who can collaborate on the platform. Do you have people who can be innovators and collaborators on the platform? And how many do you have? Do you have 3, or do you have a critical mass? And the third, of course, is governance. What are the rules of governance? Are they simple and clear, so the flow between you and the flat world will be as smooth as possible? And the World Bank has done a study of this, where they have a whole criteria. How many days does it take to get a license to open a company? How much money does it cost? How difficult is it to sue someone? How easy is it to go bankrupt? One of the most important things in a country is how easy it is to go bankrupt. Because the quicker and easier you can go bankrupt and unlock dead capital, the more quickly you can apply it. So you get your infrastructure, governance, and education right, you'll be fine. Now, part of those are management and leadership issues. Part are also resource issues. Infrastructure and education, they're about dollars and cents. If you have to pay money to protect settlements or to fight wars with Hezbollah, the pie is only so big. So peace does make a difference in terms of the application of resources.
Okay, Tom, you were a globetrotter. You probably don't remember when was the last time I met you. It was, I bumped into you, yes, it was an elevator in the Shangri-La Hotel in Dalian, China.
Was I nice? I hope I was nice.
You were very nice.
Good.
Tell us about the countries that you know through your visits that are doing the right thing, that have some similarities to Israel and we should learn from, and what exactly are they doing?
Well, I would say it's a very good question. To me, Israel is a country that is hardwired for globalization, for the flat world. Because you have the three things that, beyond the infrastructure, at the kind of personal level, that are keys to success. First of all, individualism. It's an individual's world. And when you have a society that is got a lot of solidarity, but also people are very easily able and willing to be contrarians, to challenge authority, to act individually, that's a huge asset. Secondly, an innovative culture. This is a culture that rewards and enables innovation. And the third is what I like to call a cyber tribe. Jews are a cyber tribe. You already have a global network. So when you have what I call a hot zone, which is innovative individuals, and a global cyber tribe, you're hardwired for globalization. One thing Israel doesn't have to teach is courses on innovation. In Singapore, they have an hour. Okay, now we have an hour for creativity. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to have an hour for creativity around here. Just get out of the way. But it isn't that simple, because you do need to. Not everyone can be a founder of ICQ, and not everyone can invent Google, and everyone down the line also needs to be enabled and empowered in their own way. And that's why education is so important. But I would much rather have Israel's problems, which are mostly financial, mostly about governance, and mostly about infrastructure, rather than Singapore's problem. Because Singapore's problem is culture-bound. That you question authority at home in Singapore, and sorry, you're going to get smacked down. So don't think you can have a home, a culture, where you never challenge your elders. And then in the classroom, people are going to stand up and say, teacher, you're all wrong. Okay? That doesn't happen. So I'd much rather have Israel's problems, which are really can be cured by money and better leadership, which I think are easier to come by than trying to create a culture of innovation.
But Tom, when I read your book, I wasn't that thrilled from the flat world, because as you know, there are about what can Israel offer in a world where you have 500,000 Chinese and Indian engineers coming out every year, 500,000, and it's not only they are talented engineers, you have thousands and maybe tens of thousands of very motivated, smart, and hungry entrepreneurs there. So what can we offer them, the world?
It's a good question. First of all, the world thinks you can offer a lot, since last month was the first month that China got more venture capital than Israel. Last quarter, China got 700 million, Israel got 600 million. Let's see, 1.3 billion Chinese got 700 million, 6 million Jews got 600 million. So the market seems to think that this place can generate a lot of ideas. Okay,
that's why you're so optimistic, because we had the statistic in our newspaper, and the headline we chose was "China gets more money than Israel for the first time." We did not mention the fact that population in China is bigger. We neglected to mention that.
Well, Bill Gates said to me, when I was interviewing him for the book, you always remember in China, when you're 1 in a million, there are 1,300 other people just like you. Okay. So. But it's on a per capita basis. Israel is a powerhouse of innovation, and I think the challenge will be keeping it here, creating that environment where you're going to get some brain drain. That's inevitable. but creating that enabling environment where people want to stay here and create these ecosystems. But you ask a really